Welcome, everyone. My name is Riley Stewart. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm an assistant dean of admissions over at Reed College. I'm joined today by fantastic representatives from our Center for Life Beyond Reed and our Office of Student Support here at Reed College. I'm super excited to be joined by all. This is going to be a fantastic panel. I will have y'all introduce yourselves in a moment, but I do want to note for our participants that I am recording today's session. We do plan to put this on the Reed YouTube at some point, so folks who were not able to make it are able to still see the knowledge that is being shared, which is fantastic. After I have our panelists introduce themselves, I will get the ball rolling with a couple of questions, and then I'll turn it over to our participants to ask some questions. I will moderate, so my plan is to monitor the chat and the Q&A function, and I'm going to read each question out loud for accessibility purposes before addressing our panelists. For our panelists, if you don't mind introducing yourself, maybe saying your name, pronouns, the office that you are representing. And then I would love to know what y'all's favorite spot is on campus. I think mine is the Performing Arts Building, even though I have a thesis tower background today.
Everyone, my name is Sarah. I use she, they pronouns. I am one of our assistant directors of advising in the Center for Life Beyond Read. I oversee advising for students who are interested in careers in the arts and also within sustainability. So anything that's related to like the environment or anything creative. And I think my favorite spot on campus, it's the cherry blossom trees, when they're in bloom over in Elliott. It's beautiful. It's like Instagram perfect. And honestly, like you can usually see like a couple of cute little critters running around if you're real quiet.
My name is Shania Siren. I am the Director of Student Support for the Office for Student Support. Previously to that, I was also with the Center for Life Beyond Reed as one of their assistant directors for 6 years. So I've been at Reed for a little while now. She, her pronouns. And I would say my favorite spot on campus is the soccer field. I used to coach the women's soccer team for a couple of years. And so I have a lot of fond memories of being on that field and working with students in kind of a different capacity and getting to see our students engage in really competitive sports against other colleges and institutions. So, yeah.
Thanks, y'all. I really need to admire the cherry blossoms and the soccer field more. I don't think I spend enough time at either. So thank y'all for those answers. To get us started, I'm wondering if each of you can describe the services offered by your offices and when you most frequently see students start to utilize those services.
I'm happy to go first unless Shania, you would like to. I'm cool either way. Um, yeah, so to just kind of take a brief moment to describe, what it is we do, kind of sort of in the name, just really anything that's related to your life beyond Reed. So we offer advising for career, graduate school, and fellowships and awards. And so that's anything from helping you with a resume and cover letter in your first year through our peer career advisors, down to helping you find internships and full-time positions, and maybe potentially considering grad school in your senior year and beyond. We get it's a pretty even split as far as when we see students come into our office. I was just looking at some data today, and it's about 25% seniors, 25% juniors, around a little under a little under a quarter of sophomores as well. And we also do frequently see alumni still come to see us because we offer graduate school and fellowships and awards advising in perpetuity, and also professional advice, career advising for that up to that first professional job. So if you're a recent grad and you're still struggling to find something, like, we encourage you to come to us. We're here to support you. And we have about 1,600 appointments a year on average. And that's both students who are coming to see us for the first time or students who have been working with us for a little while.
And then the Office for Student Support, I would say the resources that are available kind of range. My role is to be very much a switchboard to the institution. And so I work with students oftentimes who are looking for support if their financial aid has changed, if they need connected to our Health and Counseling Resource Center, if they have accommodations, disability accommodations that they may need access to, or if they need support within their dorms. And beyond that. So my role is very much to have a very deep understanding of all the institution's resources and offices and support the students very individualistically to help connect them to that need or that resource or help remove a barrier that they're experiencing that might be in the way of them being able to fully engage in or outside the classroom. And so I would say it's a very useful resource. I'm often seeing students though a little more reactively. So I'm usually not aware of a student's need until something maybe is becoming really challenging for you. Um, and I usually am aware of that through our care referral system. So the college, much like most colleges nationally, have care teams and care referral systems where staff, faculty, students, parents, alumni, neighbors of the neighborhood are able to submit referrals to me, and I'm able to then be able to review that information, connect with the student, and help them identify resources. So it's actually a very highly used system. And I would say it is underutilized for proactive care. So that's me saying if something starts to feel like a challenge, even if it's a little one, I'm available to you. You don't have to wait for it to become a huge challenge or problem to connect with me. And I think like that's a culture that we really want to shift on campus to get folks more excited and more interested in utilizing those resources before it gets to be a big challenge.
Thank you both. I'm curious if there is anything about the services that your respective offices provide that you wish incoming students either used or knew about the work that you can do to support them.
And so right off the bat, my first thought is immediately our peer career advisors. They are some incredible human beings. They act as exactly as it sounds. They are able to give one-on-one advising to any of our Reed students, but truly like our first year students in particular, we set up peer career advising both like residentially, so that way they're in the dorms doing drop-in advising like 4 days a week. You're able to schedule one-on-one appointments with them, and again, they are an incredible resource for resume, cover letter, figuring out like just even figuring out what it is you want to do, which honestly a lot of our advisors will tell you our favorite statement is like, I don't know what I want, because then we can like help you explore. Beyond that, if you are someone who is interested in going into healthcare, we have the Daniel Healthcare Career Fund, which is something that you can apply for to help cover any costs that are related to professional development within the healthcare field, which is a really incredible resource. And then we also have the Sophomore Exploration Fund, which is a fund specifically targeted towards supporting sophomores' career exploration and development. So maybe a little ways off currently, but something to think about kind of like as you are journeying through Reed.
I would say for the Office for Student Support, because my role is to kind of be connected to everybody, I would highly encourage folks to engage with their area coordinators. A big shout out to our Res Life team. All freshmen and sophomores typically live on campus those first couple years, and so your area coordinator is a really great point of contact for like all of the above when it comes to questions. Even if you're trying to figure out like where should I go off campus, where to go explore Portland, but even just the little things like, hey, my roommate and I aren't really clicking. What suggestions do you have? How do I, have a conversation with them about that? So your area coordinators are very much like the point person in your dorm, but then can also help you navigate how to access other things on campus. And I work very closely with them day to day to support students who live on campus. And then also your HAs, your housing advisors, who are available to you in that same capacity. And so I would say like students who typically are most engaged with those folks are the ones that are able to better integrate into campus, find that sense of belonging, find community, and know how to navigate the different resources and offices that are available to you.
Thank you both. I'm going to ask one last question before I kick it over to our participants to utilize the Q&A function. But I'm curious if there's anything about y'all's offices that you think set it apart from perhaps similar offices at other institutions. I know, for example, Center for Life Beyond Reed follows a communities of purpose model, which I have never encountered before working for Reed. So I'm just curious if there's anything like that that you think folks ought to be aware of.
My gosh, how much time do we have for me to answer this question? I'd start really truly with what you were mentioning. We start things from a purpose-driven model. We follow an advising curriculum that is centered around skill building and helping students get the resources that they need to build their professional skills, show you how to engage with your resources, to explore different career paths, both on campus, both on and off campus resources. And the thing that I truly love the most is that we do operate from a purpose-driven standpoint. Our first question isn't what job do you want to have? It's what is exciting to you? Like what do you feel is your purpose? And that can feel like a really big question. So like we can break it down from anything to like, what are you excited about? What problems do you want to solve? What makes you angry? What do you see in the world that you want to be a part of? And then we kind of take things from there. So I love that we approach our career advising, our career graduate and fellowships advising from this holistic model of how do you want to show up as a human in a professional workspace, and how do you want to show up as a human in your community, and how can we help you get there?
Riley, can you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, I was curious if there's anything about your office that you think makes it a little unique from other institutions.
Sure. Thanks. Um, Yeah, I mean, I think this is kind of a hallmark of Reed generally. So this is not me saying this is just my office, but I will say that like within the Office for Student Support, and you'll notice this throughout the campus, we offer what is called like a concierge level service. And so with Reed, our staff ratio is like 3 to 1. There's usually one staff for every three students. And so oftentimes with that comes the ability to really serve the students where they're at in the moment, and take a very individualized approach to their needs. And I think like that is not real at every single campus. And I think that's a really important key in considering Reed as an institution, partly because 4 years is a long time. There's a lot of things that could happen over the course of 4 years that you may never predict, right? There's a lot of growth that's going to happen in 4 years at Reed. And so being able to have folks who are very excited to want to engage with you and are doing this work at this particular campus because they enjoy meeting with students and are ready to support you as an individual and not as a number, I think is a really key feature of my office, but also just a broader key feature of Reed.
Thank you. I am going to open it up now for questions from our participants. Please use the Q&A feature. It's a little too hard to monitor when folks use the hand raise feature on my end. I'll monitor Q&A and the chat as well. I think the first question I see in Q&A is maybe a little bit more geared towards Sarah, and then the next one in the chat is perhaps for you, Shania. But the first question is asking about essentially how Reed does grades, which if you would like to provide some context in, that might be lovely, and how this might impact a student's ability to get into law school. I'm wondering if we can broaden that out into graduate school as well.
Yeah, so the way that Reed does handle grades, there we do have a deflated grading system. I will be completely transparent in the sense that a lot of the graduate school advising I see and handle is not quite as specialized as far as law school goes. However, we do have a designated pre-law advisor. They are one of my colleagues. They are wonderful, and they are currently in a doctoral program for law and policy. So this is something that they eat, sleep, and breathe quite literally at this point. And they can work with you on GPA, work with you on how to communicate this to law schools and kind of walk you through that process. Very similar to what Shania said, is very much kind of this concierge, like one-to-one, very personalized form of advising. Um, And so that's how we tend to approach things with graduate school as well, is we will walk you through that application process and we'll kind of we kind of tend to figure out on a case by case basis, well, how can you showcase these skills? How can you explain, GPA? And there are explainers that are included within, folks' transcripts as part of the Office of the Registrar, if I am remembering correctly. But yeah, I would say that, yeah, the best option that we have is just kind of talking to an advisor and talking about your specific situation, and then we can go and support you from there.
Thank you.
I
Oh,
can give a
sorry.
little bit more context to grades at Reed. I'll also share this, Riley. I don't know if I can share generally with you or with everyone.
That's
Uh,
a great question. Let me make you a co-host and see if that changes.
this link is a PDF. It's published. You can find it on the website if you Google grades at Reed, and it gives you some brief data on like our historical grades. So you just can have that kind of GPA context. The way grading works at Reed, yes, you definitely get that constructive feedback regularly from your professors. You do have a GPA, and you can view it. The primary thing to know about Read, though, is learning for the sake of learning is really critical here. And so we have a couple key points throughout each semester where you get a chance to kind of get some context on how you're performing in the classroom. So over the course of the semester, we have one point, it's called the 4-week comments. That's a recent change in our model where your faculty will give you comments on whether or not you are meeting the expectations of the course 4 weeks into that course. Um, and then at the 8-week mark, you get your 8-week grades. That is a projected grade based on your first 8 weeks of performance in the classroom. It's just another point in which you have a little more context about how you're doing, but it's also another opportunity to connect with your faculty if you're kind of surprised by that, or if you want some, feedback, some dialogue on how you can maybe improve that projected 4-week and 8-week grade. I hope that helps.
That was very helpful. Thank you. And I think this question might be more geared towards you, Shania. We have somebody asking about the background of resident staff, particularly our housing advisors. So are they faculty, peers, staff? What is their role within the housing communities?
For sure. So our area coordinators are all live-on residential professional staff and all have master's degrees. So are definitely folks who I think like res life is very much part of their long-term career plan and have a deep passion for this work, and are also living inside the dorm, and are able to then be available to you most of the time. And then they're also part of our on-call rotation team. So Reed has an on-call team where there's at least one area coordinator who is on call for that week and is available 24/7 if something comes up. And I think that that's a really important feature that, the folks who are responding to maybe like emergency or concerning situations after 5 o'clock on the weekends at midnight are also your area coordinators. And so I think part of that helps students feel a sense of security and safety and knowing those are the folks who will respond and make sure that you're okay.
Thank you. Um, Sarah, this question might be geared a little bit more towards you. We have a question about support that is offered for folks that are interested in perhaps pursuing a career in healthcare. Wondering how Center for Life Beyond Read can help our students with that.
Yeah, so when it comes to folks who are interested in going into healthcare, we tend to start on kind of a similar foot of talking about the purpose behind it. What is the why? What are things, within healthcare that inspire you? What problems do you want to solve? And we have a designated pre-health advisor to help you guide you through the application process of, any, medical school or kind of like post-read training. And they do work, she works in tandem with our academic advisors. So academic advisors advise on courses, and we advise on anything related to professional development, skill building, experiential learning. Like I mentioned earlier, we do have the Daniel Healthcare Career Fund set up for folks who want to, do things within healthcare, and maybe need funding for it. And this is anything from doing job shadowing in clinics, to going and attending, like the Harvard World Pre-Health Conference. And then as far as our advisor, our advisor goes, she is currently getting her PhD, and she worked at the College of Pharmacy admissions at Oregon State University for 2 years. And she is incredible, one of the like most organized, like straightforward, helpful human beings I've ever met. She is awesome and will help with every step of the way.
Thank you. I'm gonna kick this one over to Shania. We have a question about when you were talking about the resources sometimes being reactive, what are we doing proactively to try and help students perhaps who might be struggling and unable to advocate for themselves or who are not engaging proactively on their own?
For sure. I mean, I think this is a big part of Reed's like culture is that our students are given a high level of autonomy. And I think with that, oftentimes we have to be mindful about not overstepping. And so I think that's a big part of my role is trying to make sure that as I get maybe a referral about somebody who is concerned for a community member, that I still take into consideration that that referral is a, someone else's perspective of somebody else's need. And so trying to be very mindful about giving the person, if I am concerned for a student, the opportunity to self-identify what they need, not make assumptions about what, what's going on in their life. And I work very much to kind of have that person lead me in terms of what resources I might connect them with. Um, but beyond that, in terms of proactivity, my office really is the point person and kind of oversees our 4-week assessment outreach process. So I mentioned this earlier that folks get 4-week assessments by their faculty. And then the student life division receives that data and is able to then do direct outreach to students if for whatever reason courses are not going well for them 4 weeks in. We're able to then reach out and be like, hey, we're available to support you. Do you have some time to meet? And that's a really good point that I would say is more proactive for students to kind of have a conversation with somebody. And this is oftentimes like, freshman year where you enter the college environment and you're like, whoa, this is a lot of coursework. This is different. And that's a proactive point in which my office through our student life division is doing direct outreach to you and it's like, hey, we still have time to turn this around. Let's get you connected with the right people. Let's have a conversation maybe about study skills and figuring out what's going on here that we can support you in being more engaged in the classroom. And if it's something that's outside of the classroom, let's start working on that now. And so the office is definitely trying to collaborate more with our faculty and engage in that way so we can then kind of use these points along the semester to do that outreach when students are in need. Maybe, maybe not everything's wrong. Maybe it's just something really little, a little tweak that we can support you on that helps you just better engage in the classroom or on campus. Um, our Res Life team, so our area coordinators, they engage really heavily with the HAs. And so that's another point in which an HA might be like, hey, I just noticed this person is, really isolated. They never come out. I'm really worried for them. And I just want to make sure that like someone can reach out and support them if they need it. So I'm oftentimes getting referrals from our HAs who are just like, a light touch would be wonderful. If somebody could just reach out and check in on this person, that would be great. Um, and so that's really where the care referral mechanism is this huge function of our campus that gives people the opportunity to kind of softly let me know, I'm worried for this person. Oh, sorry, an HA is a housing advisor. They are our student staff who are inside of the res halls and collaborate with our area coordinators to run events, do support, help you wayfind. But yeah, the care referral system is a large mechanism and it's designed to really allow people to let me know, even if it's a small concern, that someone maybe just needs outreach and a person to chat with.
Thank you. I'm seeing we're getting a couple of questions in the chat about internship opportunities, be it for students that are interested in law or in film. I'm curious how we help students find internships while they're at Reed and what that process might look like.
Yeah, so kind of the way that we start things is we like to start simple by looking at their own communities, whether that is friends, family, or tapping into the alumni or the Reed Alumni Network, which is deep and intricate and some of the most excited people I have talked with as far as working with current students and getting them connected with resources or potential opportunities. So we work with students on how to build up that network and kind of as you're building the network, looking for opportunities, looking how to, brand yourself and how you want to present yourself to these potential employers. One thing that we do, we strongly encourage paid internships no matter what, and we will assist with helping you figure out how to find those opportunities, whether it's figuring out what type of thing you're interested in versus, I'm looking for jobs and I'm not really having a whole lot of luck. What am I, what could I potentially be doing? I don't want to say doing wrong because it is such like a learning and growing process, and there's so much that happens behind the scenes with employers. But if a student is seeing that they're having like low response rates, we can then like look at their resume, look at their cover letter, talk about like the interviews that they've had, go over any interview questions they may have been given ahead of time. Really just anything and everything that's related to building up those skills for finding the internships. We very much focus on like skill building and helping you build your network versus having specific opportunities available. However, if one of our advisors does come across something that makes them think of a student that they worked with, they would absolutely send it their way. And what kind of the ways that we do this is by helping them figure out how to navigate LinkedIn, figuring out how to leverage the alumni directory to their advantage, and looking at local opportunities too. And if, for whatever reason, you're not able to find an internship that's paid or paid enough to, have a living wage over the summer, we do have something called the Summer Internship Award that is designated to help support students, that are in unpaid or underpaid internships. And typically it's going to be within a nonprofit or kind of like a public office space. But as long as you can make the case that you are the primary beneficiary of the internship, that will help quite a bit as part of the application process. So it's kind of just a very, very brief rundown of kind of how we tackle things regardless of industry. I know you mentioned there were some students who are interested in, talking about interested in opportunities within law. That I can speak to. The Read Legal Network is also a really great resource for students who are potentially interested in going into a career in law. It's a professional network of a bunch of readies who work in the legal field, whether that's, attorneys, paralegals, whatever have you. And it can be a really helpful resource for students as well.
Thank you. I think this might be slightly related, but I'm curious, Sarah, because this is something that I often struggle to articulate to folks when I'm working with them, and I suspect it's because you all are the best resources for this. Can you perhaps share a story about a student that has leveraged the alumni network for maybe a job or an internship opportunity?
Yeah, so that can be a little bit tougher just because we don't always hear back from students once they've received the opportunity, which that's totally fair. They're not obligated to keep us up to date. But I can share that there was a student who recently was connected with some alumni through one of our other advisors, and they are having, they're starting to schedule meetings and chat with folks. One person who is a senior research analyst at the Brennan Center for Justice in New York, and then another person who works for the UN. And then I recently also worked with a student where we kind of just focused on here's how you find people within your network that you are interested in, kind of focusing specifically on the skills. And then when we had a follow-up appointment, she was like, yeah, I talked with like half a dozen people in, different areas of like the city of Portland. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. I love that for you. So really, in a lot of cases, it truly is just kind of showing someone how to do something and then watching them take it and run with it. Like it blows my mind what our students do when given like a little bit of direction.
Thank you. That is much better than any narrative I could have said. So thank you. I appreciate that. Shania, this might be a little bit of a pivot, but I am curious about resources that are perhaps available to students that are moving far away from Oregon. New York City is our example in the question and answer. Do we do anything to help students adapt to the environment at Reed, maybe during orientation?
Yeah, absolutely. The majority of our students are from out of state. So we are definitely seeing a lot of folks who coming to Portland might be a first for them. We have a really robust mentorship model on campus. There are, as Sarah mentioned, there are the peer career advisors. We also have the peer mentor program for students of color. And we have our HAs. And so I think you'll find that there are a lot of roles on campus that students are holding as leaders. And that is a really critical feature of Reed, I think, in especially sort of like transitioning here and trying to find your people and trying to figure out what about campus you want to take advantage of. There are a lot of opportunities for you to be paired with and have that mentor available to you who can kind of help answer those questions for you that are maybe non-academic and are really just like, hey, how do I get integrated into the kind of like vibe and culture here, especially if it does feel very different for you. And I think that's a really key point that Reed has really like it's definitely grown over the years where we have more and more student jobs available and more like mentorship opportunities. We also have our owls, which are our orientation wayfinding leaders. And like that's another point, Riley, to your point during orientation, where we are able to then like have students engage with an owl, owl being one of our like unofficial mascots. And I think that's kind of where like you may not find that you need it during orientation. It may be like, oh, it's midterms and I still am like really struggling to find people on top of trying to just like handle this coursework that you can then be able to connect with your HA or have a peer mentor who's able to speak from more of like a cultural background of like what it's like to go to Reed. And so I think it's really just trying to pay attention during orientation for these different opportunities that might present themselves. Please like check your inbox, check your email because we are definitely, and I know CLBR is too, like pushing these opportunities and wanting to like desperately connect students to the right person and people. Because there are definitely various groups of like mentor-mentee relationships or having somebody who's kind of a leader to you, depending on what that might mean or look like for you and your needs.
Thank you. I love that we call them owls. That always makes me smile when we see them walking around in their shirts during orientation. Sarah, we had a question in the chat that I'm wondering if you can speak to. It was about job opportunities for students on campus. So I'm guessing this is related to student work employment.
Yeah, I'd be happy to speak to that. There are a lot of opportunities to work on campus. We have our student work office they are really helpful. A lot of, most of our, I think most, if not all of our positions that are available on campus get posted through a website called Handshake, which is also what we use in the department to schedule appointments and kind of track progress with students. But there are a lot of different departments on campus that have positions that open up. I know that I can speak to us specifically. We have two student workers, both of whom are under me at the moment, and one handles marketing. So as I know Shania kind of mentioned, checking your inbox and that we also send stuff out. Our marketing intern sends out a newsletter every week, and will also help with sending out email blasts if there's like a really cool opportunity that we want to get the word out about. Right now, we're hiring for a podcast producer for CLBR's podcast, which is called Burn Your Draft, which you all should definitely take a listen to. It is fascinating and really, really cool. It's talking to recent grads about what their experience writing their senior thesis was like. And you can learn anything from like the ecology of snails to like Victorian Gothic novels. It's really cool. I am getting off topic though, and I fully recognize that. Um, but yeah, to kind of answer that question, we have a lot of opportunities for students to work on campus, particularly if they are receiving work study. I don't know a lot about what that process looks like on the other end of things, but I do know that anytime I have hired for a position, I reach out to the student work office and talk to Kat, who is I think she's a student work coordinator. And she has a pool of students that receive work study. And so some departments may choose to do that. Some departments may choose to post the roles on Handshake. But either way, there are a lot of opportunities available to work on campus. And our peer career advisors and our advisors would be happy to help you with your resumes and cover letters too.
Thank you. That is very, very helpful. And Kat is who manages the work study. And I would also say, if folks are curious and they're here and they've been admitted, if they have work study, that will show up in your financial aid package that we send out via email. So be sure to be checking your inbox to get that important information. I think that's probably a common thread across our three offices. We send a lot of emails. Please check your inbox. Shania, this question might be more for you. My apologies if this is not geared in your direction. I have a question about IEP accommodations in high school. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about the work that Disability Accessibility and the Resource Center does on campus, if that's something you feel comfortable talking about.
I can talk generally. So with our Disability and Accessibility Resources Office, we call them DAR, they offer individualized academic accommodations. And so if you had an IEP in a high school, that does not necessarily mean that like the accommodations you receive through that IEP transfer one-to-one into Reed's environment. So usually DAR does an intake with you and goes over whatever your needs are. Especially if there's maybe some documentation that might be needed, DAR is able to help coordinate that with you, potentially even like having you visit our HCC to get something documented or helping you work like through your insurance to go off campus to get a diagnosis or documentation. And then they're able to then assess sort of like here are the individualized accommodations that you would be eligible for. And then you're able to work with your faculty on how to actually like enact those accommodations.
Thank you. That was much more detailed than an answer that I would have been able to provide, so I really appreciate that answer. Sarah, this is another little bit of switching gears, so bear with me. I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about how CLBR assists students when they are applying for fellowships, the Fulbright, the Watson, or the Rhodes. What does that process look like?
I would love to answer this question because I've done both the back end admin part of it and the advising part of it. So I'm thinking of Fulbright in particular. We have a two-part process for Fulbright. So we set up like a first like really rough deadline. It's usually like midsummer. It's before everyone comes back to campus. And it is essentially just where do you want to go? What do you want to do? It could be the roughest draft possible, just so that way you have something to work on as you're working towards putting together like your final application. Then we have the second deadline that requires you to meet with a staff member from CLBR to go over your application, any questions that you have. This version is going to be a lot more polished and ready to go. We then host and schedule the campus feedback sessions. So you are having a CLBR staff member and faculty review your application and give you feedback on it. So that way you can rework it. And this is all done well in advance of the national deadline for Fulbright, so you can get your documents in. As far as Watson and things like Watson and Rhodes, a little similar. The Fulbright process is a lot more kind of regimented. But as for Watson, we also have the fellowships and awards committee that review applications. Once we select nominees, we continue to advise them after they've been nominated and help support them throughout like that national application process. And then our advisors are all cross-trained in fellowships and awards. So any one of us could talk to a student about Fulbright, Watson, or Rhodes. So regardless of what maybe community of purpose they belong to, we'd be happy to help support them however we can. We kind of start off with this like philosophy of scaffolding. So it kind of breaking off a little bit from, I like to call in my head, I call them the big ones. but we have things like the Career Advancement Fund where you're applying to, get funding for like up to $500 per academic year for like career exploration related expenses. And the idea is that the more that you learn to apply for these awards, the more that you are working on building your skills, building your confidence. So let's say you apply for a Career Advancement Fund your freshman year, then you apply for a summer internship award, either maybe later that year or your sophomore year, then you start to feel more and more comfortable. So by the time you're approaching senior year, while Fulbright is, but Fulbright is a big deal, of course, but it's not going to feel insurmountable because we're there to remind you, like, hey, these are skills that you've been building on for the last 3 years. So it's kind of a very brief overview of how we tend to provide support for fellowships.
Thank you. That is super helpful. Shania, I'm curious if you have a sense of resources that students might utilize if they're feeling particularly stressed or perhaps as they acclimate to the workload at Reed as a first year student.
Yes, I do. We have a lot. So, I would start first, like as a first year student, everyone has to take the humanities series. And that's a really that's going to be a moment where you're going to notice that the course load and the learning level is definitely high, and that's with intentionality. That's to prepare you for the rest of your academic career. And so because that is definitely a point where everyone is sort of experiencing that same academic challenge in the same moment, there's Hume Night where before the deadline of the Hume essays that are due, our faculty are available, and I believe our academic support staff support this in offering Hume Night, where everyone can come in and sort of like collectively work on their Hume essay in preparation to submit it. And then we also have our academic support staff. And that's another way that you can definitely get tutoring. You can meet with our quantitative skills coordinator, Aman, if you're definitely in some quant courses that are starting to get a little challenging for you. This is another hallmark of Reed. As I mentioned earlier, we are available in abundance. And so we have a tutor for every single course at this college that is guaranteed. And so I think that's another important thing to know, that if you are in a course, you don't have to worry about whether or not there's even a tutor for it. They are hiring with intentionality to ensure that there is a tutor available for every single course that's offered. And then we have our language lab, which is really cool. That's available to students who are taking any of our language courses, and need maybe that more like specialized language support. And so there's definitely and with intention, like that, again, individualized level academic support on this campus where someone is available to support you, and it's at the intersection of whatever course load you're in. And I think that that's really important to keep in mind as the workload kind of increases, that you don't have to experience that stress alone. The college recognizes that it is rigorous and has put into place a lot of offices and staff and student workers who want to and look forward to supporting you through that challenging course that you may be experiencing.
Thank you. That was such a great answer. That's exciting for me to hear too. Sarah, I'm curious. So we have a question about students. Do we have any experience working with students that have pursued careers perhaps in the gaming industry or in other science/art interdisciplinary type careers?
Yeah, so this is something that I can speak to pretty generally, just because I'm still relatively new to my position, as an advisor. I've been with Reed for about a year and a half, but had been advising for about 4 months. So I'm kind of speaking as a little bit anecdotally here. Um, I've worked with and seen students who are interested in going into the gaming industry, and again, it's kind of a similar approach of what it, where do you find, where do you see your purpose? What is the why? What excites you about it? And then leaning into that and going, awesome, what skills do you have that you can showcase? What experience do you have that you already have that you can showcase? How can we get you to where you need to go? And so again, very similar kind of teaching about, how to network within that industry, finding, specific opportunities, that again, if we happen to see them come across our desk, letting the student know. So really it's kind of, again, I'm speaking to it a little bit generally, I recognize. But a lot of it is kind of, looking at what is the industry looking for? What is the industry, asking for? What skills are in high demand? And then kind of helping students work from there. I know the Career Advancement Fund in the past has supported students self-publishing their own video game, which I still think is probably one of my favorite applications that I've read. So that's also another option is you can use the funding that we have to, kind of build up your own portfolio as well. So whether that is taking, courses in coding or finding opportunities to work over the summer or, really just anything that you're wanting to do as far as like building up those skills, like we're there to support you and help you find those resources as well.
Thank you. I think along those lines, I'm quite curious, what are things that CLBR regularly does to support students in their job hunts or career transitions? Do y'all do like mock interviews, resume workshops? How frequently do those kinds of things happen when they do happen?
Yeah, so we love doing that kind of stuff. Um, there's always one-to-one resume review with your advisor within your community of purpose or with a PCA if you're a first year student. Our website has a lot of resources on how to write a cover letter, how to put together your resume, including visual outlines. If you're, feeling stuck and aren't sure really how to format things, which is someone who all throughout undergrad would stare at a blank page going, I don't know how to talk about myself. Having that format in front of you can be really, really helpful. We also do one-on-one advising with how to use LinkedIn. We have group events. We've been recently hosting some virtual crash courses with LinkedIn. A Reed parent who is the head of global sales at LinkedIn reached out to us and was asking, like, how do you help students with LinkedIn? Can I help? And so we've connected a couple of times and have hosted some really cool, some really cool virtual sessions just to show them, here's how you can use this as a research tool, here's how you can talk about yourself online, kind of even showing like a little bit of like the inner machinations of LinkedIn as well, which is, can be really, really fascinating, honestly, and give you a different perspective on the job search. We also have drop-in advising weekly. I know I mentioned that our peer career advisors do drop-in during the evenings, Monday through Thursday. We also host drop-in advising weekly in the Commons dining area. So there's a CLBR advisor that you can go to if you just want someone to look at your resume really quickly, or if you are, if you're just like, I have no idea what CLBR does. What does that look like? We're there to answer that question as well. We also host drop-in every Friday specifically for seniors if they're working on like grad school applications or job applications. Um, so really we have events and workshops throughout the year. Some of them are going to be just for first year students and some are going to be for everyone. So come on by, say hi. We don't bite. We're happy to help. But yeah, we do a lot to kind of engage with the campus community and make sure that you all know like we're here to support you. We have resources for you. Just swing by and ask, truly.
Thank you. And it looks like our Q&A is currently clear. So I'm going to use this opportunity to start winding us down. So I have one final question for you all, which is, what advice would you give to incoming Reed students about engaging with your offices early in their college journey?
So I feel like this might be a little bit repetitive. But meet with your peer career advisors. They're there to support you. They focus specifically on, programming and making events for first year students. They're specifically there to support you, ask questions, provide guidance. I also would encourage you to not be afraid if you don't know what you want to do. I'm speaking from my own experience as an advisor. I love it when students walk in and are like, I don't know what I want to do. Because my first reaction is, cool, let's talk about what you're interested in. Because that's going to be a fun conversation. We try to really make things like low barrier and try to take a lot of that stress out of, what is my future going to look like? And take out the, what job do I want versus like, what am I passionate about? And if you're ever not sure who or how to ask your question, we have a general email that's monitored by a CLBR staff member. It's beyondread@read.edu. And you're welcome to email us anytime to ask questions. We are always happy to help. And apply for Career Advancement Fund. Think of something cool that you want to explore career-wise and just apply for Career Advancement Fund. The worst that happens is that you're told no, and then an advisor can work with you on how to turn the no into a yes.
I would say for students entering the college environment, and this is something I've told students, freshman, junior, sophomore, senior, it it cuts across all the class years. A good degree is a done degree. And I think that's something that I'm in a doctoral program right now. My faculty advisor told me that first day of orientation, and I clearly stuck with me because I've not forgotten it yet. And I think it's important to keep that in the back of your mind that like perfectionism is not critical to you performing well and enjoying your read experience, enjoying your experience at any institution. And I think like that's a really critical thing to keep in mind when you start in college anywhere is that it's okay to not be perfect or the best at every single class, every single year, and every single semester. The purpose is to learn and to be challenged by that learning and to make mistakes in the 4 years that you're here. And so I think really keeping that in mind that like your degree is useful because you completed it, and not because you had to be the top of the top. And I think oftentimes we can kind of get lost. And I say we because all of us have gone to college and beyond. You can really get lost in feeling like you have to be this particular academic person to thrive in a college environment. And if anything, I found that the more diverse your life is within the environment, thinking about like if your life is a pie chart, academics should only be one portion of it. It should not be 99.9% of the pie chart. And so really trying to diversify the pie chart of your life, finding meaning in different places, whether that's going and trying a new sport that you've never done, or our backpack co-op will take you to go. I think right now we have a group of students who are gone backpacking for all of spring break for free on Reed's dime. And so going out and trying those new things and trying to diversify your life and kind of make that pie chart be academic, social, wellness, whatever it is for you, but really trying to kind of keep in mind that like you're here because of all of the opportunities that are available to you, and not just the coursework. And I think that's something that a lot of times in my role, I'm having to help students process through. Um, and I know it's like easy to say now, and then you get here and you're going to feel like, okay, this coursework is different, it's heavier. And definitely take time to like connect with your faculty and study and do your best, but also know that like your worth is not wrapped up in the coursework.
That is such excellent advice. Thank you so much for putting that out to our panelists. I wish that is advice I would have received earlier in my education. So I really appreciate you bringing it to the forefront of everyone's mind. Thank you both for joining us today. This has been so helpful, and y'all have so much knowledge to share with everyone. So I'm so appreciative that you were able to join us. For our participants, I just want to let you know we are going to wrap up in a moment, but we do have some more virtual programming you might enjoy. We're hosting a series of faculty office hours right now virtually, which can be a great way to learn more about majors that you're interested in. We're also hosting a study abroad panel, which is a great way to learn more about opportunities to study abroad at Reed, and a West Coast Perspectives panel. All of this can be found on our visit and events page through admission. So that is a great way to connect with us. And you can always reach out to our general inbox in admission, which is admission@reed.edu. I so appreciate everyone taking time to be here, and I'm gonna go ahead and close this out. Thank you guys so much.